My name is Tom, and this is a story I never thought I'd have to tell. It's one of the hardest experiences of my life. It started with a feeling, one that I didn't want to believe, one that I tried to push away, but no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't go away. Sarah, my wife of 9 years, and I had built what seemed to be a perfect life. 2 kids, Ethan, our 6-year-old son, and Lily, our 4-year-old daughter. A house we loved, steady jobs, the kind of life everyone would envy. Before we dive in, please subscribe. It means the world to us and helps us bring you more amazing stories. But somewhere along the way, things began to change. At first, it was subtle, almost unnoticeable. Sarah started coming home later and later from work. I'd ask her why, and she'd say, "Oh, just finishing up some things at the office, or there was a meeting I had to attend." I didn't think much of it at first, but as the weeks went by, I noticed that these late nights were becoming more frequent. I tried to be understanding. Work can get demanding after all. But then there were the small things that didn't add up. Her phone always face down on the table, always locked. She would take calls in another room or send texts in secret. I tried to ignore it, tell myself that I was overthinking things, that I was just tired and stressed. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. We weren't connecting anymore. There was no affection, no warmth in our conversations. She became more withdrawn and I became more frustrated. I thought, what happened to the woman I married? What happened to the woman who used to laugh with me, share everything with me? The intimacy had disappeared and I could feel the distance between us growing wider. One night, after another late evening, Sarah came home at nearly midnight. She was tired. I could see that. But something was different. There was a hesitation in her step, a reluctance to even make eye contact. I decided that this was enough. I had to know the truth. I couldn't live in this limbo of uncertainty any longer. So, I did something I never thought I would, something I can't believe I did. But in that moment, I couldn't help myself. I set up a hidden camera in our living room. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I told myself it would just be for a few days. Just a small glimpse into what was happening when I wasn't around. I had to know if my suspicions were right. Was Sarah really just tired from work? Or was there something more? I didn't want to believe it, but part of me already knew the truth. The next day, after Sarah had gone to work, I sat down to review the footage. My heart was pounding in my chest. The screen flickered to life, and at first it was just Sarah walking in as she usually did. But then something caught my eye. A man walked in right behind her. He was tall with dark hair, wearing a black jacket and jeans. I didn't recognize him. Who was this man and why was he here? I felt my heart skip a beat as I watched them interact. It wasn't just a casual exchange. They kissed right there in our living room. It wasn't the quick kiss you give a friend or a colleague. This was a full-on passionate kiss. It was the kind of kiss you share with someone you're in love with. Couldn't breathe. I had to pause the footage and take a moment to process what I had just seen. My wife, the woman I trusted with my life, was kissing another man. My hands shook as I rewound the video and played it again and again. I needed to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But there it was. Sarah was having an affair. The worst part, I realized it wasn't just a one-time mistake. This was something that had been happening for a while. Sarah didn't just invite this man into our home casually. They sat together talking, laughing, sharing a bottle of wine. I could see the way they looked at each other, the affection, the way they touched, the way Sarah smiled at him. This wasn't just a fling. I felt my world crumble around me. How long had this been going on? How had I missed it? But the pain didn't stop there. It got worse. Later in the video, Ethan and Lily came running down the stairs to greet their mother. I could feel my heart sink as I watched them run to Sarah and the stranger, who was now sitting on our couch. Ethan, without hesitation, ran straight to him, calling him Uncle Chris. Lily followed suit, laughing as she hugged him. Uncle Chris. Couldn't breathe. I froze. My 6-year-old son, the little boy I raised, was calling this man uncle. My kids, they had already formed a bond with him. They were calling him family. I was the one who had always been there for them, the one who helped them with their homework, took them to the park, tucked them into bed every night. And now this man, who wasn't even supposed to be a part of our lives, was already playing a role I should have been playing. Tears filled my eyes. How long had this been happening? How many times had Sarah introduced him to the kids as a friend? I couldn't help but think about how my children were so innocent, so unaware of what was really going on. They were too young to understand that their family, their safe little world, was being torn apart right in front of them. When Sarah came home that night, I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I confronted her. I didn't shout. I didn't even raise my voice. I just showed her the footage. I let her see her own betrayal. The look on her face when she realized what I had discovered, it was something I'll never forget. Shock, guilt, shame. She didn't try to deny it. She didn't try to make excuses. Instead, she broke down in tears. And then she told me everything. She confessed that Chris had been someone she met at work. And what started as a friendship turned into something more. She said she hadn't intended for it to go this far, but over time she had fallen in love with him. She said I had become emotionally distant and that she was lonely. She needed someone to talk to, someone who made her feel special again. And I had become so wrapped up in my own life, my own work, that I didn't even see it happening. It hurt. It hurt more than I could ever put into words. She was blaming me. She said I didn't pay attention to her, that I didn't notice when she was slipping away. But the truth was I had been there trying to make it work, trying to fix things. I didn't know she was already gone. I stood there feeling completely hollow. How could I trust her again? How could I ever look at her the same way? She had already allowed this man into our home, into our lives, into our children's hearts. I couldn't erase that. I couldn't undo the damage. And the worst part, she promised she would stop seeing him, but I couldn't believe her. Not anymore. The hardest part of all this was telling Ethan and Lily. I didn't want them to feel the weight of what was happening, but they already knew something was wrong. They could see the pain in my eyes, and they could sense the tension. I promised them that I would always be their father, that I would always be here for them no matter what. But the truth was, I didn't know what our family was going to look like anymore. I filed for divorce the next day. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I couldn't live in a house where every corner reminded me of the betrayal. It wasn't just about Sarah and Chris. It was about protecting my children. I couldn't let them grow up in a broken home where trust had been shattered beyond repair. As painful as it was, I knew it was the right decision. Sarah begged for forgiveness, said she'd do anything to make it right, but I couldn't undo the hurt she had caused. The kids would have to adjust just as I would. But one thing I promised myself was that no matter how hard it was, I would never let them feel like they weren't loved. I would be their rock, their constant. I freaked out when I set up a camera to spy on my wife. But what I found wasn't just an affair. It was the breakdown of a family, the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. But even in the pain, I learned something crucial. That sometimes the truth is the hardest thing to face. But it's the only way to move forward. And now I'm learning to rebuild, to heal. Not just for me, but for Ethan and Lily, who deserve more than I could ever give them before. We will move forward and together we will find a way to be whole.